Okay, so the goal of tonight's session is to work on information that's required by the Department of Environmental Services. And this information is required for all RTP projects. It includes three major things that we're going to do tonight. One is using what's called the NHB DataCheck Tool. That's I think it's New Hampshire Heritage Bureau is what NHB stands for. And we're going to be using that to check for environmental impacts. And then we're also going to be creating a USGS map that is required to go along with our DES permit. The DES permit is called a DES Trails SPN. And what that means is statutory permit by notification. I know it's a lot of word salad with all this stuff, but you know, if you don't get to know what these forms are called, and you try and submit them, you go to ask any questions about them, they're going to want to refer to these things. So I've shortened it to DES Trail SPN form. And that form requires a Natural Heritage Bureau report, and it also requires a USGS map. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the NHB tool first and get through that. And then we'll create the map, and then we'll fill out the DES form because we'll have the two required things done already. So when you first come into this screen, it's going to ask you to sign in. But since you've never been on this before, you need to go through the register here as a new user. Once you've done that, then you can sign in like I'm doing now. And as you can see, I've got 16 pages of projects here that I've done over the years. So this thing tracks every project that you do. And it just keeps building up. I forgot what my first one was, but it was back probably in the early 2000s. So at this point, down at the bottom of the screen, let me just make this a little bit smaller. There we go. You've got three choices: new project, update profile, or log out. So I'm going to be clicking on new project. And this first page, and you don't have to worry about taking notes on this because in the notes that I gave you for your homework, I'm going to review these switch boxes that you need to check off. So don't worry about taking notes on this. But it's the things that you need to check off on here are that it's under the other category. It's a grant application. And then under Department of Environmental Services, we're going to be filing a Trails SPN. So if you take a look, it says seasonal dock, trails and culvert repair, culvert repair and replacement, statutory permit by notification. So that's that SPN word salad I was talking about before. So, and then down at the bottom, it talks about, do you have a federal nexus? And in your case, you're not going to have to worry about that. So we're going to go to the next screen now. What element requires, oh, I'm sorry, under grant application, I forgot to specify, so I'm going to put RTP grant. Okay, so now it comes up with this screen and it's asking who the applicant is. So you're always going to be the applicant. So you click off, I am the applicant. And what it does is it pulls in the information that you put in when you registered for logging into the system. It automatically pulls that in for you. And then below that, you want to check this box that says, I certify that I am a representative of the landowner. Now, in order for you to check that box, you need to have already approached the landowner about the project and, gotten their permission to do the project. Hopefully you've got forms signed, and we'll be going over those forms in a future class. But, you need to get your landowner relationship squared away before you do this NHB report, because what ends up happening is they end up getting a copy of the report. Okay, so the next question is, how do you want to submit the project boundaries for this request? And you want to check off, I will map them online through the DataCheck tool. Going next. Oh, I forgot about putting in the landowner information. Okay, filled in the landowner information. Now I'm hitting next. All right, so now we get into the project location. And this one is in Berlin. Are there vernal pools on the property? What a vernal pool is basically a kind of a small pond or wet area that usually dries up in the summer. So water usually collects there in heavy rains or in the springtime, and then it dries up when the weather gets dry. And these vernal pools are very important for things like salamanders and certain types of plants and so on. They're fairly rare, and unless you absolutely know there is one there, I would encourage you to click no or don't know on your form. Generally, in the territory that I've been dealing with, it's a very gravelly territory, and so we don't have the soils to allow vernal pools to form on a lot of our trail area. But you may have a different situation. But if you click yes, it's going to bring you into other things that you're going to have to deal with. So like I say, unless you absolutely are sure you've got a vernal pool, I suggest checking no or don't know. In my case, I'm positive there are none in this area. I'm just going to put a short description here. In my example, I have a very long description that you can use as a sample of what to put in here. But to save time, I'm not going to bother pulling that up. Okay, the next question is, does the project include stream crossings consisting of repair, replacement, in-kind replacement, rehabilitation, or installation of a culvert, arch or bridge, or a temporary stream crossing? So in this case, we are replacing a failed culvert, so I'm checking yes. But it's possible for you to have a trail project that you don't have any bridges or culverts going in which case you check no to this question. So in my case, it's a pipe with interior corrugations. And then what will the project footprint be like? Is it a new footprint, meaning you're building a new trail through the woods, or within the current footprint, or expanding a current footprint? In my case, this particular trail rebuild is within the current footprint, so I'm checking that one off. Okay, hitting next. Okay, so now what we're going to do is use my mouse button and I'm just scrolling with my mouse button and just zooming in. And my project's over near Head Pond. And over on the right-hand side, there's a drop-down box where I can switch to a different map style. And in this case, I am switching to aerial imagery. Okay. And the reason that I'm doing that is because I want to be able to trace out where my trail project is going to be. So essentially, I'm following this kind of S-shaped trail here. And if you remember, my trail was broken up into two parts before. I had a northern section and a southern section. So what I'm doing is I'm zooming in on the northern section. And if you look over on the right-hand side again, I'm in map mode navigation. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch to drawing mode polygons. And basically what I'm doing is clicking my left mouse button and I'm working my way along this trail. And now this is about the extent of my project. So I crossed over the trail. And now what I'm doing is I'm going opposite the marks that I just put in on the south side of the trail. I'm mirroring those marks on the north side of the trail. So the goal here is to enclose the trail. Okay, so there's my last mark. And now what I want to do is put my mouse over my starting point and left click to finish this off. And you can see what happens is it turns it red. Okay. And now what I want to do is go back to navigation mode. And I'm going to move this map so I get to the southern section of trail that I'm rebuilding. And I'm going to go back into drawing mode again. And I'm going to start outlining. And what you want to do is try and get this fairly close because you don't want to be pulling in area where you're not going to be doing your work. Okay, I'm crossing back over again. Again, I'm lining up opposite my first set of marks. Why it's not working? There it is. Okay, my last mark. Now I'm putting my mouse over the starting point And now I've got my 2 areas defined. So I'm going to go back out to navigation, and you before you hit the data check, both areas need to be in the screen. Okay, so that's why I zoomed out a little bit to be able to have both of these areas showing. Now I flip back to drawing mode again, and I'm going to hit the data check button. Okay, and it just came back saying results, no known records. Okay, now if it had found a problem like a special plant or maybe some wildlife nests that are in the area or wetlands or something to that effect, this would have come back with an answer that said impacts were found. And it would give you the option to print out a form, which you then need to send in with 25 bucks to find out what your impacts are. So I can tell you it's always really neat when this comes up with no known records, because essentially it means I'm home free on my project. Now, I'm not going to move ahead on this because I've already done this once, and I don't want to have another whole record in here for this project. But the thing that you would do is hit next, and it will then send you a NHB report, and I will show you what that looks like. And that NHB report has a number on it, and that's the number that you need to put into your DES form when you go to fill it out. So I'm going to pause here and see if anybody has any questions on what we've gone over so far. Okay, great. Not hearing any questions. So let me show you what NHB report looks like. Okay, can you folks see this thing? It says NHB DataCheck Results Letter.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so this is what you'll get in your email if you get a clean bill of health from this thing. Okay, so you can see this was my project description: rebuild 2 sections of trail, removing rocks from surface, clearing existing ditches where needed, replace existing 24-inch filled culvert, resurface, rebuild sections of trail with clay gravel. So then it just tells me it's checked for records of rare species, natural communities, and threatened communities, and it's been a negative result, meaning there are none of these communities near my project. Okay. And this is showing the boundaries of my project, and that's pretty much it. So the most important thing on here is this number right here, NHB 231055. That is a number that I need to put into my form. So if I don't have that, I can't file the DES form. Okay. And what I did is I created these data check instructions for you to follow. This is in the link for your homework. So it goes through each and every screen by screen, and walks you through what you need to put in on every screen. And it also walks you through the process I just went through and outlined in the trail. And then I also included a rejection letter. So this is what happens if there are some communities near your trail that are of concern, you're going to get, a letter, a form like this that you need to print out. You need to send it in with a check for $25, and then they'll get back to you. And this is what I got for a letter from this. The last time I got one of these was, let's see here, back in a year ago, actually, 4/14/22. So this is what they came up with. There was some large yellow lady slippers found, and those occur in wetland habitats and so on. And then they sent me this map that shows this is where my trail was going, where the red dots are. And you can see where the yellow dot was where these lady slippers were supposed to be. So I called them up, said, what do you want me to do? They said, we'd like you to go out in May and look for lady slippers along your trail, and if you don't see any, then everything's great. If you do see some, call us back. So that's what I did. I went out in May, looked for them. I didn't find them. And I actually went up here and tried to find the ones that were supposed to be up in this area, and I couldn't find those either. So anyway, if you get one of these letters that says there's impacts, don't freak out over it. 9 times out of 10, it's usually something that isn't really going to affect your project. But the problem is, if you don't do your NHB report early in the process, it takes these guys a few weeks to get back to you. So if you wait to the last minute to do these NHB reports, you could be in a situation where you're filing your grant and you don't have a completed NHB report. And I've done that before. I've called the Trails Bureau and told them the situation, and they're usually pretty good about working with you. But my message to you is do an NHB report. As soon as you know you're going to do a project, do your NHB report right away, so that if there is an impact, you have some time to figure out what it is and deal with it. Okay, any questions?
Larry, it's my understanding that you can actually use the tool to manipulate and move your trail too, if you have the ability, and to get you out of this report status.
Yes, you can. The problem is that when they don't tell you in real time what the problem is or where it's located in relation to your trail, you only find that out after you send the $25 in. So the problem is, it's a 2 to 3 week delay to find out what's really going on. So all the more reason.
But by using the tool, you can actually shift the trail. If you get a bad report day one, you can shift the trail slightly, and then all of a sudden you get a good report.
I have never done that. It's certainly possible. I would assume that you could redraw your trail and try and find an area where it's not coming up with records. No question, you could do that. But I've never done it that way. I usually always send it in, figure out what the problem is. And 9 times out of 10, they send a letter saying there's an osprey nest on a light pole, close to your trail, but it's going to have no impact. Your trail's not going to have any impact on that. So it's not a problem. So basically, you don't have to get a clean bill of health from DataCheck. It's just as good to get the letter from, your 3 weeks later, if they send you a letter and say, you had an impact, but it's not really going to affect your trail, you can submit that letter to the Trails Bureau and they're fine with it. So you don't have to always have a clean data check. You can also go through the process of finding out what the impact is, and then submitting that letter after the fact. Any other questions?
One quick question. Does this have to be done for all RTV grants? Or
Yes. It does not have to be done for GIA, but it does have to be done for RTP grants.
okay, thanks.
Yep. Any other questions? Okay.